section 4 of chapter 1 is multiplying and dividing real numbers. So we are going to cover a lot of things in this chapter, in this section, because it's all stuff that you should already know, but you might need a refresher course. So I'm going to go really fast, and if any part of it you're not sure on, there are lots of extra problems in the Your Turn problems in the examples in your book. So go back and look in your book, rewind and look through these again. Make sure to get all this information in your notes so that you can go back and review and refresh that. So we're going to start out with just a couple of definitions. The first is factors. So if I talk about factors, then what I mean is the numbers that you multiply together. So if I say 3 times 5 equals 15, the 3 and the 5 are factors. Those are the numbers that you multiply. The product is the answer to the problem, or not just to any problem, but to a multiplication problem. So 3 times 5, again, the factors are the 3 and the 5, equals 15. The product is the 15. So when you're multiplying with integers, the things that you need to know are right here. Make sure these are in your notes and burn them into your memory. If you're multiplying factors with the same signs, every time, if the signs are the same and you're multiplying, your answer is positive. If you're multiplying numbers and the signs are different, every time the answer is negative. So if you have 2 positive numbers that you're multiplying, your answer is positive. If you have 2 negative numbers that you're multiplying, your answer is positive. If you have 1 positive and 1 negative, your answer is negative. Let's do a couple. 4 times 5, they're both positive, so 4 times 5 is just 20. And because they're both positive, your answer is positive. 6 times 8 is 48. Because they're both negative, your answer is positive because your signs are the same. So you've got a positive 48 is your answer here. 9 times 4 is 36. This one is 1 positive and 1 negative. If your signs are different, your answer is negative. That's all there is to it. You've just got to make sure that you remember those 2 rules. If you've got more than 2 numbers, remember you can use the associative property. The associative property says that you can change the grouping. So that says that I can group, if I've got -2 times -3 times -5, I can take -2 times -3. They're both negative, so it's a positive. 6 times my 5 is 30. Or if I wanted to say, well, what's -3 times 5 is a -15 times -2. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 15 is 30. So we get the same answer either way. So your grouping doesn't matter when you're multiplying with integers. If you're multiplying and you've got more than just two factors, if you have an even number in your list of numbers, if your number of negatives is even, they're going to cancel each other out and your final answer is going to be positive. If your number of negatives is odd, then that means you're going to have one left over that didn't match up and be a double. So then your final answer is going to be negative. So that's just something to remember. All right. Now, let's see. So that was multiplying integers. That's easy. Now, let's multiply fractions. Fractions are easy. When you're multiplying fractions, you multiply the numerators first, and then you multiply the denominators, and you just have numerators on top and the product of the denominators on bottom, and then you simplify it by canceling out like terms in their prime factorization. I'll show you that. I'll also show you a shortcut that I love about multiplying fractions. You can simplify first. So let me get a couple of problems here. Let's see. So if we've got 3/4 times 5/6, what we can do is we can just multiply straight across. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 6 is 24. And then we can say, oh, well, I can divide out and I can reduce this down. But check this out. Instead of reducing afterwards, you can look here and you can say, 6 is the same as 2 times 3. And 3 and this 3 are going to cancel out. So you can cancel this first before you even multiply. So now you just have 1 times 5 is 5. And now you have 4 times 2 is what's left here because you changed this to 2 times 3. So 4 times 2 is 8. So 5/8 is your final answer. Let's do a couple more of these just to see those steps. Let's do a big, long, hairy, scary one. We've got -4/15 times -9/16 times 14/15. All right. So you can look to see, ooh, what's in both, or you can just look at remember you can take their prime factorization. So you know 4 is 2 times 2. You know 9 is 3 times 3. You know 14 is 2 times 7. 15 is 3 times 5. 16 is 4 times 4, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And 15 again is 3 times 5. So then you can either multiply all of those out and then do this reducing, or you can reduce here and you can say, ooh, I've got 2 2's here. Let's mark out 2 2's there. So you got a 1 left here. That's easy. And you still have 4 left here. You've got 3's here, 2 3's. You've got 1 3 here. Those match up. You can cancel them out. And this 3 cancels out with this 3. Oh my goodness. Am I confusing you or is it working? All right. So then all that's left on the top, you've got a 1 here. This is now down to a 1. You've got a 2 and a 7. You've got some 2's down here, so cancel out one of those 2's. So all you have left on the top is a 7. And then you look to see, you've got 1, 2 negatives. So that's an even number of negatives. Negative times a negative is a positive because they were the same. And positive times a positive is a positive 7. And then in your denominator, just multiply what's left. You've got a 5 here, times 2 here is 10, times another 5 is 50, and you're finished. All right? You might want to back up and look at all of that again. I think once you start recognizing those prime factorizations, this is going to be super quick and easy, and a lot easier than trying to multiply all those big numbers out and then trying to figure out, well, what's in common on the top and bottom. All right? Because you have to simplify all the way down for your final answer. All right, so that was multiplying fractions, quick and furious. Multiplying decimals, you should also know how to do, but let's just take a quick review. Multiplying decimals, you're just going to multiply the numbers first, and then if you'll remember, you get your decimal in your answer. You're going to put your decimal in your answer or in your product so that the number of decimal places in your product is the same as the number of decimal places in total in your problem. Let's look at what I'm talking about. So if you've got a -5.6 times 0.03, first just multiply the numbers. So 3 times 6 is 18. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 more is 16. So once you finish multiplying, then you're going to look to see, in my problem, to the right of the decimal, I have 1 place here. So I have 1 here. And to the right of this decimal, I have 2. So I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places in my problem. So I need 1, 2, 3 decimal places in my answer. So there's my decimal for my answer, and I had a negative times a positive, so my answer is negative 0.168, negative 168 thousandths. All right, there are more of those in your book to practice with if you need more practice on those. The next thing we need to discuss is a multiplicative inverse. This section covered a lot of different things. But a multiplicative inverse you probably already recognize as reciprocals. And I have a smiley face here because I like to call them flip-flop fractions, just so that I remember. A multiplicative inverse, that just means what do I multiply by this number to get 1? So a multiplicative inverse, you want the answer to be 1, and you're going to do that by multiplying by the reciprocal. So a number such as, so 2/3, the reciprocal is just flip it. So the reciprocal is 3/2. And you can see that if you multiply the two, these are going to cancel, these are going to cancel just like we did before, and your answer is 1/1, which is just 1. So 2/3 and 3/2 are reciprocals of each other. 3/2 is the multiplicative inverse of 2/3. So let me give you a couple. See if you can do these real quick. Let me give you -1/4 and 6. Can you find the multiplicative inverse of -1/4? Well, sure you can. You're just going to flip the fraction and have 4/1. Don't forget that it started out negative, so it has to stay negative. And anything over 1 is just itself. So -4 is your multiplicative inverse or your reciprocal of -1/4. The reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse of 6, what's that going to be? Well, 6, remember, is the same as 6/1. So then you flip it, and so 1/6 is the multiplicative inverse. The reason we need multiplicative inverse or a reciprocal is for when we're dividing by fractions. When you divide, you need to know, let me show you first. When you're dividing, the rules are the same as before. So add here, multiply or divide. Multiply or divide numbers with the same signs, the answer is positive. So if you're dividing two answers with the same signs, you just divide them, and your answer is positive. The same with different signs. Multiply or divide numbers with different signs, your answer is negative. So something like -35 divided by 7. Well, 35 divided by 7 is 5. Your signs are different, so your answer is a -5. One more, 48. -48 divided by -6. -48 divided by -6. Well, 48 divided by 6 is 8. The signs are the same. So my final answer is a +8. A couple of quick rules for dividing with 0. Zero is its own little tricky monster. If you are division with 0, if you have 0 divided by any number, that answer is 0. So if you have, if I have 0, I'm holding nothing, I'm holding 0 pencils, and you want to divide them into 3 piles, well, I can take those 0 pencils and give 3 different people 0 pencils. So 0 divided by any number is 0. If you have any number and try to divide it by 0, if I have 2 markers and I need to divide it between 0 people, that's undefined because there's no way to divide 2 somethings into 0 piles. I still have 2 somethings that have to go somewhere. So some number divided by 0 is undefined. You just can't do it. All right? And then 0 divided by 0, the answer is if you take 0 and divide it by 0, it's not 0, but it's not undefined. It is called, the answer is going to be indeterminate. Which means you can't figure it out, but it's not undefined. And the reason for that is if I took 0 pens and I divided them into 0 piles, I could have 0 piles, but I could have 62 piles. I can have 62 piles of nothing out of nothing. So that's why 0 divided by 0 is indeterminate. You can't come up with an answer. All right. So those are the situations with 0. Dividing by fractions. You need to know that when you divide by fractions, you're going to multiply. And this is what's cool about the video. If you didn't get this written down, just pause and back up just a little bit and get it. All right? Dividing fractions. The rule is you're just going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so if you're dividing fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. So, and still your signs, your positives and your negatives still apply. So what you're going to do is -7/8 divided by 5/6. So -7/8 divided by 5/6, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. It's always going to be the second number that you take the reciprocal of. All right, leave the first number the same, so -7/8. And now you're going to multiply by the reciprocal of your second number. So 6/5. And so now we can say, ooh, this is 2 times 4, and this is 2 times 3, so my 2's can go away. So I have 7 times 3 is 21, and 4 times 5 is 20. And I had a negative times a positive, so my answer is -21/20. And it's okay to leave it an improper fraction. All right, so when you're dividing by fractions, and there's lots more examples in your book, if you're, I'm not sure, do a couple of those your turn activities. The second number is the one you're going to flip and then just multiply. All right, so last thing in this section, of course, is a word problem. Where might we use this type of somethings in a word problem? So I have a lovely word problem for us to do. For a chemistry experiment, Fred used 3/5 of the contents of a bottle of hydrochloric acid that was 3/4 full. What part of the bottle did he use? So he pulled out a bottle of hydrochloric acid and it was 3/4 full. Then he proceeded to use what was left. He used 3/5 of what was left. And here's a little trick. Of means multiply. So put that somewhere in your memory bank. Of means multiply. In a word problem, anytime it says something of something, that means you're going to multiply. So this means he used 3/5 of, so you're going to just write out word problems really once you start seeing the translations. 3/5 of is multiply. 3/5 of the contents. Well, how much is the contents? It says down here that the contents were 3/4 full. So 3/5 of 3/4. And nothing will reduce because this is 2 times 2 and there's no 2's up here. So we just have to multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 4 is 20. So he used 9/20 of that bottle of hydrochloric acid. All right, there are lots and lots of different types of problem. Back up if you need to look at one of the different types, look through the problems, look through the your turn, and I will see you soon.